Welcome to Chalk Talk, a weekly preview of West Tennessee football featuring the JSUN sports team on JacksonSun.com.
Hi everybody, welcome to Chalk Talk at JacksonSun.com. It is round one of the playoffs coming up this Friday. My name is Craig Thomas. I'm here along with the high school columnist Brandon Shields, in charge of our high school football coverage. And this is a big weekend, and Brandon, we get to out of that regular season and into the playoffs. Lots of games to talk about. We got.
Was that a good job on that, by the way?
I mean, it was accurate. It's,
okay.
It's still annoying. But
right.
We got 19 teams we want to talk about. We'll be covering, kind of keeping up with this week here in our coverage area. A handful of games we want to talk about. We're going to kind of flip-flop formats today. If you've checked out our midweek crunch earlier this year, we kind of have some topics we picked, like dynamic duels and close calls and things like that. We're going to go ahead and do that here in this Chalk Talk segment.
Because this week's was just mainly just kind of like a playoff preview.
Yeah, and if you haven't checked that out, you definitely should, because we give a little rundown of each of the 19 schools that does have a playoff game out of the Jackson Suns coverage area, and a handful of others as well. As far as, we'll start with just running through the Jackson schools, obviously, being here in Jackson, a handful that have some playoff games this week. Northside Indians will be taking on Craigmont out of 4A.
Yeah, Craigmont played in week 5 at Hardin County, and Hardin County handled pretty good. I mean, they're coming in with a 1-9 record. The only worry that I have for Northside in this game is that they're looking past them. Because if they beat them, and if Lexington were to beat Ridgeway, they would have a chance at avenging one of their 2 losses in the regular season. But they gotta beat Craigmont first before they can even think about that.
Right. Yeah. Got to be focused and hopefully come out of that injury free and ready for the second round. Let's see who else we got out of
Liberty.
Liberty in the 3A will be playing their first round game as well against Raleigh Egypt.
Right, and kind of a similar situation. You can't be worried about kind of what's going on the other side of the bracket, expecting that you're just going to have a game in the second round. Granted, Raleigh Egypt had to beat Fayette Ware to get into the playoffs in week 11. So if you're having to beat Fayette Ware, should you really be in the playoffs? I kind of have that question. Liberty doesn't need to ask that question this week. Raleigh Egypt is in the playoffs, whether they should be or not. Liberty just needs to take care of business.
Yeah, moving down our way down to 2A Trinity Christian at Scotts Hill, a team they played just a couple weeks ago.
Right. They played 2 weeks ago. TCA outscored them. Andrew Goldsmith outscored them with 8 touchdowns. I think the final score was 69-34.
I think that's what it was.
Yeah. But it was close there for the first half, and then TCA kind of pulled away there in the second half, almost like a basketball game of sorts. We can see the same thing this week, because I kind of mentioned it in the midweek crunch. Andrew Goldsmith had 8 touchdowns that night, and he was our player of the week. The following week, this past week, Junior Kimmel, the quarterback at Scotts Hill, accounted for 8 touchdowns in their regular season finale against Loretto. So they're going to be on the field again. We could see a lot of scoring. I think it's going to be closer this week. I don't know if there's going to be a lot of defense play, because these are both really good offensive teams. So it wouldn't shock me if we were to see like a 63-56 top score in this one.
That's crazy, and with much higher stakes this time as well.
Right.
So if you like points, that'll be definitely an entertaining game at Scotts Hill. And then also, how about the Jackson Christian Eagles? A couple of tough seasons here in the past, getting a couple of big wins. Not a great record, but into the playoffs. Got a very, very tough test against Waverly.
They're not. They didn't win many games, but the games they won, they were the games they needed to win. And yeah, TCA is going to the river practically. Jackson Christian's going all the way across it and playing Waverly. Waverly scores a lot of points. Jackson Christian's defense is going to have to stop these guys and slow them down. And I remember last week talking to their head coach, Todd Rowland, and we were talking about trying to stop TCA. He's like, well, they've averaged 60 points the last 2 weeks going into this game, so what is stopping them? Is it holding them to 35 points? Kind of on the same situation in this. So that Jackson Christian offense is going to have to be consistently moving the ball, moving the chains, getting first downs, and getting points out of every possession to keep up with Waverly in this one.
Yeah, and definitely no wasted possessions, no turnovers really. It's not going to work out well. Close calls.
One more Jackson game.
Oh yeah.
Knoxville Webb is traveling to USJ
that's right. Yeah,
this
that's
week
right. Yeah, absolutely.
in Division II. Usually in the playoffs when they meet, USJ has to travel to Knoxville. We're pretty sure this is the first time ever that Knoxville Webb's having to make the 72-hour drive to Jackson for a playoff game, and it's for at least in football. And so it's an opportunity for Jackson or USJ to get a win. If they get this win, it will be their biggest of the year.
Yeah, no doubt. And I would say that's what happens when I don't have a sheet in front of me, but I messed it up on the midweek crunch when I did have a sheet in front of me, so I can't even use that excuse. Sorry about that. But yeah, definitely a big game for USJ that you'll be at.
Right.
Looking forward to seeing what happens there when they play Knoxville Webb. We have a couple segments, dynamic duels and close calls. We tend to talk about what's the dynamic duel that you chose for this week?
The dynamic duel that I chose was Memphis East hosting Haywood. That's a 1-4 matchup in 4A, but I saw Haywood 2 weeks ago. Granted, they were playing in Chester County that the coaches said wasn't exactly as focused on the game as maybe they should have been, because Chester County had a chance at not only clinching a playoff berth that night, but would have kicked Haywood County out of the playoffs. Well, Haywood came out and scored 14 points before Chester County's offense ever got on the field. So they went on to a 47-7 victory, and it was 20-0 at the end of the first quarter and 40-0 at halftime. If that team that came out against Chester County and played that first half shows up this week and plays 4 quarters against Memphis East, I'm not going to say they'd be in for a long night, but they're in for a fight. And Haywood has got some heavy hands to punch with.
Yeah, no doubt about it. A lot of talent. I'm going to go with Huntington and Trousdale County. That's a game out of 1A. What intrigues me about this, a couple different things. Unfortunately for the Mustangs, without a couple of their main backs, they're dealing with some injuries.
Right.
I guess maybe hopefully back later on the playoff run if they make it that far, I guess. Right?
Cade Pearson broke his leg. He's out for the year. He was their first quarterback, but Dylan Johnson took snaps at quarterback as well, kind of almost in a wildcat type formation. He's got like a hairline fracture of his collarbone. They're hoping if they make it that far, he could be back for the quarterfinals, maybe a little sooner. Mm-hmm. But first, they got a big game this week.
Yeah, Charleston County's team. We've seen the playoffs before. They played Adamsville and whoever. This is not really an easy first round game. You talk about Northside and Liberty. I mean, it's just kind of show up, take care of business, and move on. Huntington, for a team that has aspirations for a pretty deep run, does not really have that luxury. They're going to have to play some pretty good football, I think, to win that game. Huntington, obviously, no secrets about what they do, and it's just kind of how well can you stop it. I think going in, you have to feel pretty confident with the season Huntington's had. They've been just really overall pretty consistent. They've beaten some teams pretty badly that are not bad teams.
With the exception of their loss to Wayne County, they've beaten everybody handily. I think the closest win that they had was Camden. I think that was 20 points, like 48-28 or something like that.
Yeah, and then remember, was it Houston County that they both came in undefeated and beat them like 50-6?
55-14.
Yeah, I mean, it was a lot. So, Huntington obviously has potential for some greatness here. It can really go deep in the playoffs. But they've got a very tough first playoff game, and that's why I think that was interesting. Interesting
note going into this game, Trousdale County had a coaching change in the offseason. Who's their new coach? David Barker, who was the offensive coordinator at Crockett County the last few years.
Oh, wow. So he's, obviously familiar with the sort of the West Tennessee scene. Dynamic, I guess that was the
that was dynamic duels.
Now we got the close calls. What's yours?
My close call is Milan at Bolivar. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, Bolivar at Milan. 2-3 matchup.
We're just killing it right now.
We here just. But no, I mean, this game has potential to be a really good game. It's the first time in like 15 years for these programs to meet. They played each other. They had a home and home in '99 and 2000, according to head coach Jeb Morris at Milan. When Milan moved up to AAA there for a couple of years, and I think Milan won both games. But anyways, that has no bearing on this game. I've seen both teams in the last few weeks. Bolivar is really athletic. They've got some dangerous weapons on their offense that could create problems for Milan. Mm-hmm. But Milan's got a really good defense, with Storm Williams kind of being kind of the axle of the wheel as that defense turns, and some really good players around them, defensive line. The front seven is as solid as any team around West Tennessee defensively. So if Bolivar's going to move the ball on them, they're going to have to be ready to take their hits throughout the night.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Lexington or Ridgeway, and I preface that by saying I don't know really much of anything about Ridgeway, but it's one would think be a pretty tough game for Lexington. But Lexington is maybe not had a vintage Tiger year, but to me you can't hype Northside without giving Lexington a little bit of love, given that Lexington,
Beat
know,
'em.
wore Northside out. And I think a lot of people are pretty high on Northside. I am too. I've seen them several times. I think they've looked a lot better. I was real impressed with what they did against Haywood. But Lexington, you got to remember, not only beat Northside pretty handily, but has had some pretty good results since then. I think Lexington's another team that, similar to Huntington, they kind of you know what they're going to do. They're going to run the ball an awful lot, maybe pass here or there, but it's going to be obviously run oriented. It's traditionally good defense there. Another pretty good defense again. I think Lexington is a team that probably not a lot of people are talking about, but I wouldn't be surprised to see them go down and get a big road win.
Yeah, it's a very big possibility. I know a lot of people in Henderson County are hoping for it. They may even be borderline expecting it because I think there seems to be a image from West Tennessee of the Memphis people that they have an image that football in rural West Tennessee just isn't as good as it is in Memphis. Lexington people think this is a chance for Ridgeway people to be proven wrong.
Yeah, so it should be interesting. Lots to watch, lots to look forward to. Make sure to follow the Jackson Sun and JacksonSun.com every day. We'll have football stuff every day, basically really through the rest of the postseason, but
right.
Certainly this week, some feature stories, some previews, kind of getting you guys ready for some of these games. Kind of learn a little bit about it and hear what the experts, really the coaches, are saying going into this as they sort of assess their chances against some of these teams. We'll obviously have coverage on a lot of these games on Friday. We'll have scores from all of them, but some pretty in-depth coverage from a handful of these games involving city and region teams. And then, so Friday night, JacksonSun.com, make sure to go there, get all that, stories, photos, lots of good stuff, just like you've seen in the regular season. We'll try to up our game a little bit even for the playoffs and do some really good stuff. Then Saturday in the print edition as well, lots of good football coverage, and we'll kind of get you set for the second week of the postseason, and hopefully your team will make it. So we hope you have a great week. Thanks for checking us out. Take care.
See you.